First, you don't think that the government would buy from people like you and I, but then Eric has always pulling the curtain and letting you know, hey, this is how you do it. And then the advantage of the community is when you do get on the call and I see other people that are having stories to share and successes. So now you really begin to believe that, wow, this is something that I could do. Anyone can do at this point, someone else can do. One of the businesses I helped was an aviation parts business that would buy airplanes and resell the parts to airlines, in countries all over the world. And after some time of consulting for that business, that's kind of like, I saw the challenges and difficulties that he had with dealing with countries like Indonesia and Madagascar and Zimbabwe. I said, well, you're putting up all this effort overseas, but man, there's right here in your backyard, this pot of gold called the US government. If we could just figure out how to crack this code, you would have a pot of gold right here without having to do all that extra stuff that you're doing. So that's kind of like what led to my curiosity into government contracting.
How do you go about cracking the code, as you say it?
Well, then, just like everything else, just like when it was time to move to the States, or when it was time to understand the promotion system at FedEx and do the work in the same way it was time to put in the work to become an airline pilot, it was the same thing. I said, well, if I don't know it, there's information out here, let me go and learn it. So I started looking for books, going on YouTube, and that's one of the great things when we talk about the ignorance that I had in the past. When I started flying, there wasn't all this access to information. Whereas today, anything anyone wants to do, it's right here at your fingertips. So went on a lot of YouTube videos, went on a lot of different, read a lot of articles, and that's when I came across Eric and his channel and the GovCon channel. And the one thing I liked about Eric, I felt that this is not a plug or a commercial, but I feel like he was genuine. I felt like it was real. And I really liked the fact that he took it down from the complicated level and broke it down to a language that the everyday person understands, and which is what I needed at the time.
And I hear that a lot. And I think that's his biggest thing of me. Like people like myself and other people that don't know anything, he's able to explain it and has the patience to be able to explain it in a different kind of way. Like you might understand it one way, somebody else might understand it another way, but he's able to take whatever subject it is and make you understand it at what you see, what you think, and things like that.
Exactly like you said, at first you don't think that the government would buy from people like you and I, but then Eric has always pulling the curtain and letting you know, hey, this is how you do it. And then the advantage of the community is when you do get on the call and I see other people that are having, stories to share and successes and different experiences. So now you really begin to believe that, wow, this is something that I could do. If what one man does, another one can, or woman, or person, anything anyone could do at this point, someone else can do. Different people have different ways of succeeding, because I know your story going to the Coast Guard and you go for one visit and people talk to you and they like you and one thing leads to another, you get this contract and people just, so again, it's just different ways of doing it. And that's a beautiful thing. You don't have to do it. It's not a one size fit all formula. We have different personalities, different backgrounds, different skill set. So it's all about whatever resonates with you. And that's why your story, I love your story and I love, for people to hear your story.
Oh, thanks. So now that you started making the phone calls, starting putting all the little pieces together, do you see them coming together and actually something's happening, or do you have to wait a little bit longer to actually see like the fruits of your labor?
Excuse me. No, for me, I like to see results. I don't want to do things just for the heck of doing things. And I like to see results at some point. So, and I knew that at the time, Eric was very busy. And I looked for people in my space and I asked them, how do you do this? And how did you get started? And how do you put the rest of the pieces together? The one thing is I knew how big the space was, but I couldn't find anything that was specific to my industry. And until I found one person that did teach this to my industry. And again, I got a hold of this person and I stuck to them like white on rice until, at least they gave me the basics to get started. And from that point on, I started to bid on aviation parts for the US government.
Where did you start bidding?
Well, at first, I went to all the bid boards, and there were so many. And again, I couldn't figure it out. And it's not until I started to go to sam.gov at the time,
Mm.
and then that was the main place where all the solicitations were at. And that was my primary point of contact at first.
And you only were doing aviation parts. That was your niche.
Yes, at first that's the bulk, and that's still the majority of what we do. And it's a little different than the service industry, and it's a little different than the goods. And again, there's something for everyone because this approach, the government puts out, I don't know, maybe 100,000 solicitations every day at least, and we narrowed down to the ones that are in our space. So we use software for that. We ask around, and there's ways you could filter through and have searches. And if let's say there's I don't know, we end up with 500 solicitations on a daily basis. We bid on all those solicitations. We bid them all. And
Oh,
we started to bid. It's a numbers game. The more you bid, the more you win. The more you win, the more money you make.
oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So
How many do you think you bid on already?
I have to pull up that data. I do have it, but just so you know, this marks, you know, long story short, I did have the consulting business, and everything did fall
Uh-huh.
apart during COVID. And
Wait,
so I said,
so hold on. We'll go back to that one.
yeah,
So you start bidding, everything's going great. You're getting the process, and then you said something, COVID happened, and COVID wasn't
no,
that long ago. So where was the first misstep? I don't want to call it misstep, but first pebble in the road that you're like, because things the way we're hearing it, things are going
oh
good.
no, absolutely not. No,
And
that had
that's
a
the
lot of,
part of the story I want to hear because I
yeah,
don't want people to take away of like, oh, I just need an idea and things are going to
no.
be fine. I just have to
Oh.
follow the course and things are just going to be put to me on a silver platter.
Absolutely not. No, no, no. So, first of all, again, we had someone show us the way in terms of how to narrow down the bids and the different softwares that were available. So, I had to go ahead and, so again, I had the consulting business, and
Mm-hmm.
during COVID, everything fell apart. And that's when I decided to say, you know what? The one thing that's recession proof, unless there's a government shutdown, is doing business for the government. So we just started this. We just celebrated our 1 year anniversary here. It's last July, that we started our government contracting business. Absolutely. So, man, the learning curve of assembling a team and figuring out the software and getting the capital to, have at least, some money to not only get the stuff to bid, but once the government gives you a contract, you have to pay for it up front.
Mm-hmm.
So even learning that, just learning the process, and again, it's something that we had to learn where we had to learn how to read a contract, and then we had to learn how to submit a bid, and then we had to learn how to communicate with the government. And then once we received an award, people think that that's when it ends. No, that's when it begins. Wow.